Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. This week on episode 5, we had Uncle Adam back, my brother, and we kind of tried to focus on his gun season for 2022. There was a lot of action, a lot of mishaps, a lot of learning opportunities, but the overall theme for, I think, Adam's 2022 season, but also the title of this podcast episode is Desperation. And I think once you listen and you get a feel for sort of his behavior and his reactions to a lot of things and how he approached different scenarios, I think you'll understand what we were talking about. But anyway, it's kind of a longie, and but there was a lot to unpack here. So anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for interacting with us on the social medias. We appreciate you very much. Thanks.
That's a good question too. Like my lips being moist during the hunting season has always been something that I've freckled and dangled about before I get in and out of the car to go out to a sit. Are you recording? Oh. Like, does anybody wear chapstick? Do you just wear petroleum jelly?
Unscented.
So it's unscented. But is it really? I feel like a special smeller would really smell that.
So do you not use that Dead Downwind chapstick?
Fuck no.
I mean, that stuff smells too, but it smells like, I mean, hell, the spray, like the spray in there that you buy in the kit that you spray on your stuff smells. But I've never understood the logic behind that. Apparently that is a naturally occurring odor.
What?
That same smell of the odor elimination sprays that you can buy at the store.
The Dead Downwind, like the stuff I use in the shower, to me smells like chemicals.
Yeah, but I swear I have heard somebody say that is a naturally occurring smell in nature. I don't believe that.
So are my fucking dirty armpits.
That's what. Okay, so this. I mean, I could do a whole topic on if I'm in those woods enough. Shouldn't all of my smells be a familiar smell in those woods?
Well, so do you remember me telling you sitting in the middle of the property that I was sitting in the climber that it smelled a bit like mint?
Yes.
And I'm not sure what that was, if it was the swamp, the little bit of swamp that's behind me.
Cabbage.
But I felt like what am I looking for smell wise?
For yourself.
Should I not be using anything and just let myself get rank?
Okay, so we talked about this the other day. I feel like if you have those air fresheners or whatever Finley did in your truck,
correct.
If you smell like that, that's not
not going to be there in hunting
season. Any artificial, any man-made smell that's got it's got a name that is not something real, like ravishing ice. Like that's the smell of your air freshener. Don't use that. If your deodorant is like purebred American, I mean, you could probably use that. Well, pepperoni pizza. If your deodorant is pepperoni pizza,
that's what my armpits smell like pepperoni pizza when they get bad. Like if I don't use deodorant,
why can't I think of anything right
or like
now?
a bit like onion.
Yeah.
So let's just say
summer breeze.
I stopped.
Summer breeze deodorant does not smell like a summer breeze.
Well, right. So yeah, like wet sandal or whatever the fuck they are. So like, let's just say I let things go. I stopped buying anything for a week before I hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing goes on. I just let myself go.
Okay.
Would that be the best?
Well, so some people say, and I've tried this, if you don't wear any deodorant for a really long time, you will go back to not smelling.
Okay.
Assuming you have
I've
a relatively
also, along that line, read a response to that would be, you know how when your garbage in your house smells, but because you're around it so much, you don't notice it until you leave and come back?
Like pigs don't know pigs stink?
Your armpits always fucking smell, but because you live around it, you just got used to it.
I just saw a guy, the Elevate Stand Company guy, posted just a very generic story on Instagram the other day that said, again, I must remind you, if you're going to the gym, wear deodorant. My eyes should not burn like I'm smelling fresh cut onions.
Yes.
And so anyway, I said all that to say this. I made it very clear in my Gear Talk podcast that I don't necessarily buy into buying all of the scent, stuff. but I would say use something natural smelling.
So let me talk about this then.
Go ahead.
My good season, 21, was that what we discussed? When I got my $2, I was carrying around a fucking plastic bag with a white towel in it, which I eventually used to wipe my tushy, that had the anise oil.
Anise.
So I tried that out, and I have no... Now that I'm saying all of this, I'm wondering if that was actually a good thing. But my backpack always had anise in it.
What is that supposed to smell like, or is it just supposed to be a deterrent, like a
anise to me
distraction?
Is like almost like Jägermeister, like black licorice.
Yeah, it smells like black licorice.
And it's supposed to, that and like vanilla are supposed to be like, it's one of those, not supposed to be, it's one of those opinions where it's an attractant to.
It's an attractant. It's not a distractant.
Attractant is what I read about that year. So I tried it out.
I couldn't remember.
Now that I'm saying it out loud, I did shoot $2
You did.
With that shit all around me. So interesting.
I actually forgot about that.
I did not do that at all this year.
No. So, this is obviously Adam again. Second week in a row with my brother Adam. This is going to be episode 5. And, I think we kind of realized last week that there's a couple things we didn't get to. Number one, there's a lot of things. But before Adam even recorded last week, he said, I'm going to hurt some feelings. If I get on there, I'm going to be hurting feelings. And I'm like, ooh, this could be good. I wonder what he's got to talk about. So anyway, we never really unpacked that. And then Adam's gun season is a whole podcast in itself. So in all fairness, I'm going to let him decide what he wants to talk about tonight because I don't care.
In response to, do I need to get closer to the Puff Magic Daddy?
Nope.
I just visualized Puff Daddy as a dragon. So, in response to hurting feelings, I was communicating that to you because this is not Hot Butter Podcast. This is, you started Angel Road, and without me knowing exactly how tushy grab you wanted to be with other people, my response to you is if I come on here, I don't want to spiderwebs not talk about certain things because it may be against like some sort of code between hunters. Because part of what I meant by that is I don't agree with all that shit all the time.
You don't have to. And you don't have to be as shy about it. The only thing that we're not going to do here, and like Adam just mentioned, Adam and I used to do a podcast together for 7 years called Hot Butter Podcast. And it was an excuse for he and I to act like absolute idiots for an hour and a half or 2 hours a week. And we're not going to we're going to be loose here, but we're not going to be like that.
I'm always
vulgarities and just absolute nonsense. So there's no reason to worry about what you got to say or how you feel or what you feel. I don't care. I don't have to agree with you, and no, people don't have to agree with you. It's your opinion. Whatever it is that I don't even know what you're talking about.
Good. Great. Well,
so if
I don't have anything
ahead.
specific. It's just when things come up, I don't want to beat around it.
Oh, fine. No problem.
Bush, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
That's okay.
So
that's totally fine.
I just want to tackle the bush as the bush comes.
George, he's the only one left, I think. I think all the other bushes are dead. I mean, well, there's his brother,
Curly Gray, Missy Bush.
I don't think there's a Missy Bush.
Anyways, I don't want to talk about Bush right now. I'm not a Bush guy.
I am. So can I assume that you would rather talk about your gun season?
Well, yeah, I think it's only fair to that's where we were going last time, and then it was rudely cut off.
Well, let's grab the duffel bag and unpack it.
Okay, the satchel is open.
The satchel of spent
zipped.
The satchel of spent bullets.
Let's go. What do you want to know? What season? 22 or just
the
gun?
one we just had? Just gun season. Oh boy, he's probably gonna cry. I learned tonight that Adam has no gag reflex. I mean, he has a tremendous gag reflex.
I have a horrible gag reflex. You would think I don't. You would, if you were close to me, you would say, "Oh, I imagine he puts a lot of big things in his mouth."
So he's not going to win a hot dog eating contest.
I don't know what happened. I feel like, but when I think back to as a kid, I probably didn't have a great gag reflex either. I remember telling the dentist then, even Connie.
Interesting.
So I mean, I had to go to the dentist, and yes, I had issues with all the x-rays because they're shoving huge things wrapped in plastic in my mouth.
So back to hunting.
Okay.
Adam had a great October. He shot a doe on opening day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, first sit.
First sit, first morning. Adam is the first one to break the seal at the property.
And it really electrified me like it was going to be a season of just joy and everything was going to work out and it was going to be magical.
Yeah. Again, he practiced shooting his compound bow all summer like a wild man. Gets in the stand first morning in the tallest tree on the property with his compound, and he drills a fucking doe.
And got it all on camera.
And got it on camera.
So it was like the kiss of death. It's like getting a birdie on the first hole.
Is that a thing? That's the kiss of death?
Well, you get a birdie on the first hole. It's like where you can only go down from there.
Oh, it's all downhill from here.
So I still, even that morning, didn't have a place for my camera. So I had set it up. My camera was set up on a clip on a backpack hanger.
Oh, yeah.
And it just happened to be, I'm just going to put it on this lane. It's where the deer walk. Good fucking luck. And I just happened to have Mama come in. And I liked her, shot her, and it was on camera.
Yeah,
it just was the perfect sitch. That was the one shot, and everything seemed to work. My angle, my body, everything was easy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is going to be a good year.
And then you didn't see any big bucks from then on. And at the end of October, I think the 22nd, maybe it was the night of the 21st. I can't remember when you shot your doe. You shot a second doe. It was the evening of the 21st because I shot mine in the morning. You shot yours in the evening. October.
Yes, because it was before the rut.
It was I drove home from Kansas and my family dropped me off at the property because you were driving my truck and you and Head met me there. I had hunted in the morning and shot my doe.
Oh, you were laying in the grass.
I was laying in the grass when you got there.
Yeah.
And then you shot your doe that evening. So Adam, coming out of October, Adam has 2 does on the ground in the freezer.
Justin Tudo.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then we move into November, sweet November, and Adam gets a little taste of the rut, but then he's all fired up for bucks, and then we get to gun season.
I feel like the rut is when it all started. So like the real downfall started with there was the buck that came into the climber that I tried to shoot at from 45 yards. And I think you kept saying I hit her in the butt. Do we know for sure?
Hit her? You hit him?
Hit him in the butt?
I don't know for sure.
All we know is that the arrow only went in like half an inch to an inch. And
just the broadhead went
once
in. He
turned and took off, he just flung the arrow out. But he's healthy. He's good. He's back on the property. But that was like a forced... that was one of those moments where I realized so many things that I need to fix in my hunting game. And then right after that, that was when the males were already starting to, boob on each other.
Yeah.
And then I went right into, I think it was right into the gun season. So, I don't even know where to start
What kind of gun do you use?
So I have the 450 Bushmaster, which we bought on the toilet, which was discussed in previous YouTube things.
Oh, yeah. We did discuss that already. So Adam has a Ruger 450 Bushmaster.
Yes. And I'm trying to think of even to think of the ammo I use. It's something black.
Hornady Black.
Hornady Blacks, yeah. Recommended by Brian Lefevre. They were easy for me to find online, so that's what I was buying. So there's no issues with any of that stuff other than the only issues myself. I had yet to shoot that gun at an animal.
That's true.
So going into this season, I had no idea. Let's go all the way back to the season before. I was in a situation where I had to last minute sight it in, and I went to a friend's property in Clarkston by myself, and I sighted that gun in starting at 25 yards, 50 yards, 75 yards, all the way to 100 using a stabilizer stick. And I always sort of felt like, and when I got to 100 yards, people, like the guy that was going to farm it ended up walking out there. And I'm like, this fucking would happen.
Of course.
Because I was guaranteed nobody goes out there.
Yeah, sure, never. There's
and
never anybody
They
out
weren't
there.
interested in what I was doing. They were more just, they just happened to schedule a meeting at the property to look at what he's going to farm. So I had so let's go all the way back then. I never felt comfortable with sighting it in because in my mind, I should have been sitting at a table with that gun and I think what they call a sled, sighting that thing in and know for a fact that that gun is on so that any error is on me. That being said, I was just going into the season assuming all was good. Not long into gun season, I think you and I kind of had the conversation like you probably shouldn't use your gun anymore.
This year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until I take it to a range.
Yeah, we did have that discussion, and you'll find out why.
It's
step one. What? So opening day of gun. What happened?
Well, I have no idea. When was opening day of gun?
I don't think it was anything great.
I don't even recall opening day. I don't recall a set time with gun. I recall bad moments. So I would say what I was running into, I think I really wanted to shoot a deer with my gun.
I know you did. I also did.
I am not as much of an advocate for gun hunting.
Why is that?
I personally don't love it. I don't love the idea of if I was to sit down and compare bow hunting and getting the whole art of getting a deer in close. Were you going to say something about how I really emphasized whole?
I was.
The art of getting deer in close, having the right positioning to where you can shoot a deer 30 yards out, compared to taking my gun with a giant scope on, sitting at the edge of a field and shooting deer 200 yards away. It's just, if I was to go back in my mind to where what hunting used to be, it was, you had to be close to these animals. You had to be stealthy, magnificent, magical, and you used a stick with an arrowhead on it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, I totally agree. And you just said it in the last podcast. You like hunting to be hard or challenging.
I like everything to be hard.
Yeah. So with a gun, in theory, it shouldn't be as challenging. You should be able to shoot them so far out there that they never even knew there was a human in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I watch these videos of these guys smoking deer with a 450 Bushmaster at 300 yards.
I don't love that either.
So I can tell you that I had experiences where I would be looking. Oh, I remember the first time getting hot and horned up. I called you. You were not there. And I was watching a bunch of deer eat in a field that were, my guess is about, what did we come to, 180 yards away?
Yes, almost 190 yards away.
And I had my I was actually done hunting that day, and I was walking in. I must have been pissed off, per normal this year, and was like, well, it was probably Sunday, and I'm like, I'm going to head home, get ready for work, and not sit out here until dark and have my hour and a half, whatever.
And typically home. Adam and I will be together when we hunt. But there was a lot of times this year where I either had to go for work or maybe I had some prior engagements, like my son plays hockey now, and that happens on the weekends. And so there was more times this year than ever before where Adam was either down there by himself or...
And Head had a baby, so Head was not able to hunt as much this year. And then
he only hunted the opening weekend.
Yes.
That's it.
It was basically just Brett and I, and there was so there was a lot of times where I hunted by myself.
Yeah.
So I was in this situation once again, worrying about what I was shooting at. I knew that they were studly looking bucks. Mm-hmm. There was a couple of them, and they were fucking around at the end of this field, and there was like 12 doe, just a shitload of deer. And I got them in my scope, and I'm trying to go zoom in as much as I can and count. Like, are these 8s? Or are they 6s? So I actually was able to call you and say, hey, man, what do you fucking think? I'm freaking out.
I wish I could remember where I was at when you called me.
I feel like you were at your dinner table.
I was here. Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, just fucking shoot.
Yeah.
So I had, I selected the deer I wanted to shoot, and I had been watching them for probably about 20 minutes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you have not ranged this deer. You're just looking at it and guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
And
is there a reason why? I can't remember. Just because you didn't want to get all your shit off and find it?
So when the way that it was, I was walking in, I had this, I left all my shit in the path in my backpack.
That's right.
And all I had in my hand was my stabilizer, my gun over my shoulder. Right. So I went and hid behind this fat tree and watched these deer. I could have stopped, ran back to the path, got my bag and my rangefinder and done all that. But like,
I gotcha.
What I really should have done was taken my phone and instead of calling you, looked at what do we use?
One of our map program, Hunt Stand,
and you looked at the map, and I forget that you can do the yardage.
Yeah.
Not that it really would have mattered because Uncle Adam had not shot his gun, not only at a deer 50 yards away, but let alone at a deer that's 190 yards away.
Right.
So at this point, there was this massive tree that was down in the field. So I'm like watching these deer work their way around. And it's interesting because, you know, you hear a lot about bucks and how they typically will work, like the mature bucks will work their way around fields and kind of stay inside tree lines and just kind of pop out a little bit and take a look around and figure out what they want to do, maybe eat, and then they pop right back in. They don't go out and mosey in the fields.
Right in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, so they were staying sort of down in this little spot where there was a down tree right before them. And right when I made the decision to shoot, he was walking towards the wood line and between branches of this down tree, and then I had an opening and took the shot. Oh, no. You know what happened? I pulled the trigger.
And nothing happened.
Nothing happened. And I had figured out that every time that I walk in the woods with my rifle over my shoulder, I'm popping the pin, whatever you call it, the locking mechanism of the lever for the ammo is coming up just a little bit, and it does not allow you to fire the gun. So I knew that my safety was off. I pulled the trigger, nothing happened. So I'm looking at my gun, and I have to so I push down on the pin, whatever you want to call it, and it locks in place. So I'm like, okay, that just happened. So now I've got seconds to get this deer back in my scope as it's walking, almost to the wood line, and I shoot again. And as far as I know, nothing happened. I'm mixing up a couple different times in my head, but I didn't hit the deer. Like, there's just nothing happened. I don't think I shot. I don't think I ended up taking a shot, did I?
I don't remember.
You wouldn't know you were there.
I wouldn't know I wasn't there.
I actually don't believe I fired at that deer at all.
Oh, on the second time? Okay,
yeah,
so
I got back
the gun
in,
doesn't fire. Adam gets it situated, gets the deer back in his scope, and doesn't shoot.
And in my mind, I was like, it's probably a sign that was a 6, a decent 6. It wasn't my time. And I remember leaving there going, it's okay.
Yeah.
So then I had I'm trying to think if there was any other issues I had. There was a lot of times. So when Thorny Daniels, Goofy Face, Goofy Head, approached me in the walnuts, I had my rifle, and there's one lane where that tent was that was really good. Like, it was right out the main window. So you guys had texted, I think you and Head might have even been there. If he was not there, he was still in the group text. Fuck, I don't even know if you were there, but either way, I got a text that said, "Oh, there's a nice buck in the over by where your tent used to be." So I saw that you guys had texted, didn't know what time it was, and I'm like, interesting. He could be heading my way. So I get on my phone. I've got my camera set up to my left, but it's not recording. And I go to look at on my phone the picture. Find out what picture you saw of the deer. And within all of this, with all of this going on, I look up, and here he is. He's already there. He's over at the scrape, staring at me. So he's already looking at the tent. Like, I have a feeling the first thing those deer were doing when they would go into the walnuts from the pines or anywhere it seemed like they were the first thing they would do is look at the tent, because the tent's totally in the middle of the walnuts.
Yeah. There was some downfall. Like there was some walnut tops that had tipped over there. And so it was tucked into some downfall, but it was still not normal.
Yeah.
But it was the best we could come up with on a short notice. And so during the hunting season, we will set our cameras to send us photos instantly. And yes, I know that burns through batteries faster, but we're also horned up over cameras during hunting season. I just want to see everything immediately. So even though it's set to send immediately, there's a delay. And so if that camera takes a picture at 3:51 on the nose and it knows it has to send it immediately, by the time it gets to my phone, it's probably 3:52 or 3:53. And then by the time we text it, it's 3:54, 3:55.
And I didn't have my phone.
So now we're 5 minutes.
Texted me.
5 minutes for that deer to go 200 yards.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Right.
And so even though it was immediately after we got it, that deer was on a mission to go where it was going and got there way faster than Adam could, before. And that's the whole cell camera discussion. Why, who cares? Fucking just hunt, just pay attention. But we were trying to, and that's a lot of people say that's bullshit. You shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
But anyway, that's how we found ourselves in this situation.
I was very much paying attention. That was like a big thing for me this year, was to be present, to not be looking at all that stuff and to not be worried about my gear and everything. So I lift up, I take a peek from my phone. I hadn't even seen the picture yet. I was scrolling through,
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think I did see his butt in that camera, and then I looked up from my phone, and he's there staring at me. And Thorny Daniels, as we spoke about last time, is the guy with, now he's got the one sword on one side and he's like a 5 on the other. Mm-hmm. And he's old. He's a big dude, and it was just he looks big when he's in front of you. So I'm like frozen, and I'm like, okay, I've got my rifle. If I'm judging what he's going to do next, right?
And this is the deer that Adam wanted more than any other deer on the property.
He's just not perfect.
And that's okay.
I like that he got this characteristic to him where his. So I imagine on my wall, I've got these 3 deadheads and soon to be a 4th that are very symmetrical, very beautiful. I want Thorny Daniels because he's big. He's old. What did you think? He's 4?
I think he's 4 or 5, but he's he's over 200 pounds in the middle of the rut.
And he had gone, and he's gone through a lot.
Yeah, and
he was on the property a lot. Like you had even made the comment that he might be the only one that like lives on.
I think he lived there for the last 2 years for sure.
So I wanted him.
That was your number one hit lister.
Yeah,
I had told myself I will not shoot this deer if I have a chance. That's Adam's.
Oh, really?
You didn't know that, but I
didn't know if you guys would shoot him anyways.
I would.
He's not technically an 8.
Yeah, but he's cool. He's cool. He's old.
He's old. Yeah. So, anyways, I had gone through this process where I have got to lift my arm up, my left arm, without him noticing me. Hit record on my phone. That's all I got to do is hit record. At this point, I didn't know you could hit the top actual side button on the phone that will record. I thought I had to push the red screen button, and I was wearing gloves that are supposed to be conducive to using a phone, and I could not hit the fucking record button at all. And I finally got it, and he is at this point, he walked right down that shooting lane that was perfect. He was still moving along, and I hadn't even had my gun up, and I'm thinking, okay, so he got to a certain spot where I'm like, I could shoot now, but I'm shooting at a fucking, like, now I'm making this horrible shot. So I watched him walk into the pig pen, and I thought, well, I just lost to technology.
Yeah.
And it was so disappointing because I'm like, I don't know how many of these chances I'm going to get. I think I had already had my chance at the buck that walked in to the climber with bow, not a human bow. So anyways,
yeah. So let's tally them up, shall we? It's So from the climber, your 50-yard bow shot that went in the deer's ass.
Well, let's go back to
and
the
fell
climber.
out.
Let's talk about the climber real quick because
And
I
then-
lost the technology here as well.
Yeah, but then you've also now tried to take a shot at a deer at almost 200 yards out, and your lever wasn't engaged, so your gun didn't fire. And now you're looking at your deer that you want more than any other deer on the property in front of you in the walnuts. What would you say, 50 yards? 40 yards?
I would say 20.
20 yards away.
Because he walked from the scrape towards the tent and then made a 90-degree turn right across all those lanes in the walnuts, straight into the pig pen.
And he waltzes out of your life due to technology.
Maybe 30 yards.
So Adam was already demoralized, and this is just continuing. And of course, what do they say? You never catch the door handle on your pants when you're in a good mood.
Oh, fuck, I catch
You know what I mean?
Oh, gosh.
You never catch it when you're in a good mood. You only catch it when you're in a shitty mood.
I want to make it very clear that Uncle Adam gets caught on every knob and every cupboard and door. Like, my door handles are levers. Fuck
I think
those things.
you were built for castle times where the doorways were giant, big,
and the fire. Yes.
Yeah,
I was. I've always wanted one of those big fireplaces.
You're built like a small Viking.
That's why it's hard for me to be in your
It's like a
infrared
spherical
sauna.
coffin.
God, gee. Even the x-rays at the dentist, the first x-rays they do, sorry, we're going to talk about the dentist for a minute. You stand in this machine and it circles around your head and takes all these pictures and you bite this thing.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, ooh, these are really close. It's like scraping my shoulders. And I'm like, is this thing going to go around me?
Adam's built like a strong man for anybody that's never met him.
Like a brick shit house.
That's right.
I'm girthy. And I'm okay with it. I've come to terms with the fact that I at most mornings I get up and look at myself right now and I go, you look like a lesbian.
I almost cut all my hair out today.
Yeah, like I'm ready. Yeah. It's just the length of your hair, how you look dead because it's winter. We're already Norwegians and Irish and fucking whatever we are. We already look dead. So then mix all that together. I'm thick. I've got a ponytail. And I look like a butch lesbian, and that's fine. I'm coming to terms with the fact that like I'm not 19 anymore. I'm not.
No, you're not. So where were we?
So I'm going to take a step back to
bow season.
The deer that I shot at. We'll go this way. I had moved. I started in Skyscraper. Nothing was happening, and I could see that there was action in the middle of the property. It's, would you say 200 yards away, if that? From the Skyscraper, I can see the climber.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get down. I've got the doe decoy. I am going to walk. I'm just going to move over to the climber mid-sit. Adam's already gotten to the point. I'm Adam. I've already gotten to the point where my patience level has decreased in this hunting season.
This is middle of the rut.
Yeah. Things seemed so out of reach to me. I feel like everywhere I sat, things were 100 yards away, 200 yards away, and I could see it. So it was really driving me nuts. And I'm like, nothing's happening where I'm sitting. And then I'd get antsy and I'd move, and then I'd be mad that I moved. But anyways, I moved over to the climber. I just I winged where I put the decoy. But I set it right about where that buck came in that Nate shot that year. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is a good lane. It'd be good for me to shoot this way with my bow. So anyways, I had buck action around me. I had a young buck walk in, hit a scrape to my left, and then a little tiny baby doe squirted out of the swamp behind me within 20 yards. And she would not leave the decoy. And Fruit Boy came up. That's Young Muffin. He came up and he was interested in the decoy, but I had a buck that I was trying to talk to earlier in deer language. I have a feeling that buck, I was watching him to my right, and then he disappeared, and I have no fucking clue where he went. I really have a feeling it was him, and he made a giant loop. He disappeared. I think he circled around, and then he was the buck, and he ended up coming in from my left down. I watched him come all the way down, and he fucked around with Fruit Boy and pushed him out of the way. And then Fruit Boy stood back and was like watching as this buck, who at this point I had already made the decision, it was one of those things where I made the decision like I'm gonna shoot at him.
Yeah.
He looked low and thick. Like he wasn't super tall. He was low boy, fat boy, thick boy, like Daddy Adam. And he was making his way to the decoy. And so I had my camera on. My phone was on, recording already.
How far away was he?
At this point, he was probably 60, 55 yards.
Okay.
Making his way very slowly towards the shooting lane I had selected, towards the decoy.
Mm-hmm.
I had Fruit Boy behind him, staring at the decoy, and I had Little Baby Girl who would not leave the decoy. At this point, I'm starting to get sensed out by these deer because I'm doing some things like turning on my phone. And I realized that the bow hanger reached out and was right in front of the camera of my phone. So all my phone was looking at was this like metal bar. So I'm like, fuck. So in my mind, I'm already processing, how do I move things without all of these deer seeing me?
And you're 6 feet off the ground.
And I'm 6 feet off the ground. So I took my bow off and I had to move the bow hanger. And at this point, I had Fruit Boy. Somehow it worked out because those two deer were already there. Fruit Boy was just watching, and Baby Girl, they were looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't even pulled my bow back yet. And then the buck walks in and he gets to the certain spot, and he was, I would say, about 45 yards, which is to me too far.
Yeah.
At least for my first season bow hunting. I had practiced at 40, but the reason I'm getting to the reason why I feel like it was too far. He got to a spot where it was an opening, and I had pulled back, and I'm being fucking stared at, and I'm just waiting to be busted.
Yeah.
He's even staring at me at this point. So I've got like nothing but a shot.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
I had him in my sights. I took the shot, and I knew I hit him. And I felt really good. I remember being really happy. I couldn't wait to get down, and I walked into you, and I was like, yeah, I fucking got a buck,
Yeah.
you know? And we go back, and like, we have trouble locating the spot we even hit him, like to find blood. Usually,
we kept walking and walking and walking, and I'm like, man, he was out here. Like, the further away we got from the climber, I'm like, this is a long shot, bro.
So, and you looked at me and you go, FYI, they typically say the distance to put your decoy is like 25 yards or 20 yards.
20 yards.
20 yards.
25, yeah.
And I think I had it at like 35.
Maybe.
And that's because I moved locations and
Yeah.
just set it before really knowing what I was doing. And I also didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up finding my arrow not far from there. He had sort of made this crazy turn. But if you were to go back and watch the video, because I did get it on video, he's far enough away to where it's hard to see where I hit him.
And so he was alert because he was watching.
He was already
you.
staring at me.
And he was far away.
So the amount of time, so by the time I shot, and you can watch this all on video, the amount of time it takes for my arrow to fly that distance and hit him, he had already fucking dropped and made a crazy turn.
Yeah.
And it must have hit him in like shoulder.
I think it was his ass.
You think his turn made it hit him in his hip?
I think he was broadside, and I think he turned away from Adam and began to take off, and that arrow hit him in his butt, and it only went in just the depth of the
must
broadhead.
have hit bone or something.
Yeah.
And bounced out.
Yeah.
So we tracked for a while, and eventually,
Yeah, because there were little drips.
Yeah, you'd find a spot where there was drips, and that was fine. We tracked him exactly where we thought he was going to go, and it got to a point where you couldn't track anymore.
Yeah.
Like it was just like it was going to be impossible.
Yeah.
And we went back and watched the video, and it was like, I think we just came to terms with it was just not a great shot.
Yeah.
Something like that. But as you sort of got home and were able to digest the video, and we, he was too far. And my thought was, what I took away from that was that I should, when they get behind the tree, when he was behind these trees that were right there, before he got into the opening, I should have pulled back and been ready to go before that and been okay. I had this whole thing this year where my bow is heavy. It's a heavier bow, where I didn't want to be sitting with it drawn back for too long. So I was waiting, I waited to, he was already, I drew too much attention by my drawback. I should have done it behind the trees and waited for him to get closer and then took the shot. He would have not known it was coming.
Yeah.
But because he had already looked at me. So anyways, who knows if it was a bad shot or not? It was simply too far away. He had too much time to react, and I hit him in his hip, probably. Yep. So that deer has been back on the property.
Yep.
And I'm not. Well, anyways, so go back. Let's move forward now. Gun season again.
Yeah, hold on. I gotta take a break here, and all right, we're back. Sorry about that. Thought I could hold it the whole podcast. And
I needed to really pee too. I was dancing.
He was dancing.
Ooh,
all right, so we're back in gun season. Adam has already had one gun not fire at a deer at about 200 yards. He's had his number one target buck walk into 20 yards and didn't get a chance to shoot at him. And now where are you at now?
Let's go to field.
Okay, same field as the previous field.
I did not like sitting in the field in the beginning of the season. At that tree to me was not bow. It wasn't the best stand.
Oh, we're not doing the other tree?
Which
the other field where you did shoot?
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So I decided to sit in the field. The field, we know the deer are coming in there to eat at night.
So it was beans this year. They harvested the beans and they planted winter wheat. Down. Yeah, they planted winter wheat and it was starting to come up.
And we had bucks coming in there on camera, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna sit there gun. I even think at this point I was taking bow and gun together.
You might have been.
There was times I was taking both weapons. This is just describes where my head was at this whole year. Like,
you felt you didn't feel confident in your gun.
I wasn't. I was struggling with the gun. But I still felt like I could make something happen. Like I could set up the decoy and get something in there, hopefully. Anyways, took the risk, took the doe decoy out with me, and there was a lot of interest in it. The doe action in that field was crazy. I would have doe around me all night long. And then I had a couple deer already out at the decoy, and I was watching them. And I still had my stabilizer stick with me, and I had already figured out how I was going to use that from a tree stand. So I happened to look down, and there is a buck directly below me. Like, I'm talking, he walked directly below me. Like, he must have gone.
I think you skipped one. I think you skipped a whole series of events.
Did I?
The one that was in the other field that you shot at.
Oh, yeah, I did. I jumped ahead.
Sorry.
I jumped ahead. It was the same day.
Oh, I got
the same fucking day.
Oh my God.
So, which is even worse. So I was there by myself again, and
this time I was traveling for work.
Brett was traveling for work, and it was the same field that I had already was going to take a shot at a buck, and my gun did not go off. I'm trying to think of exactly what happened. I was hunting again, and I just happened to be walking in to take a break, and I look over, and out same end of the field is a buck. And I'm trying to think if there was even another deer out there. I think there might have been a couple. I think so. Way down, but there wasn't as many this time, and he looked good. He looked fruitful and natural and healthy. So I'm like, I'm gonna take a shot at this guy. So once again, I'm in the middle of the trail, and I drop my shit, and I'm standing there. So I'm standing in between. I have a gap between these two pine trees, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm shooting. Once again, he's 180 yards out. So I go up pretty high above his back because I've researched a little bit of what's going to happen to my bullet as it travels over this distance and etc. So I shoot and startle him to the point where all that he does, I know I don't hit him because all he kind of does is like basically like his toes pop and he just kind of stares at me. Like he just turns and looks like, what was that? Nothing else. So I reload and I get him back in my scope.
Did he loop around? Didn't he spin around?
I think when I first shot, the first thing he did was he kind of like popped up and turned like he kind of turned the opposite direction. So he was like facing one way and he turned the other way.
Yeah.
And then he just stood there and stared like at me, like, what the fuck was that? So I'm like, oh, this guy's going to give me another shot. Then Uncle Adam, who knows where my shot went. All I know is my gun went off. So I'm thinking, what the fuck? So I'm like, okay, I've got time. Get him in my scope. And I take another shot. And he just kind of, all I see is I look and he's just gently, sort of sweetly bounding off into the woods. Not even bounding, like just real sweet, soft, gentle, like prancing away. And I'm like, I totally didn't hit. I didn't hit the deer. Like I didn't hit the deer at all. Again. And at this point, I'm like, oh man. So I think I went and I got my truck and I called you and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, yeah. I don't know what. I can't be that bad. Like I can't. How far is the bullet dropping? Like if it's 180, like what? I was above his back, up in the air, but my guess is it just wasn't even making it to him.
Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know.
So once I researched like 200 yards, I think it drops 11 inches.
Okay.
So I don't know. All I know at this point,
no idea.
All I know at this point is we have had that conversation. Like, you need to go to a range and just let's move on to bow. Like, let's forget the gun. Let's just stop using the gun.
Yeah.
Like it's either
I just knew that I would have stopped. I would have been like, something's wrong. I can't keep doing this.
But there's still a part of me that's like, I'm shooting far away.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have an issue if the deer was 50 yards away.
Mm-hmm. And you went out and you looked for blood.
So you said to me, I had not had anything to eat or drink.
Oh, yeah.
And I was going to go get something to eat from the gas station. And you're like, if I was you, I'd get your tracking shit on and I'd go over there and start tracking that deer. And I had already gone down there and looked.
I personally found it so hard to believe that Adam could take 2 shots at this fucking deer and not hit it anywhere. I just found it really hard to believe. I'm like, okay, maybe it didn't mule kick. Maybe it didn't tear ass out of that field. Maybe you didn't drop it, but maybe you blew a hole in its guts and he walked out of that field because he was uncomfortable. I don't know. I was just hypothetical saying,
yeah, okay,
I hear you that you didn't drop it and he didn't act crazy, but it was so hard for me to believe.
Mm-hmm. And the right decision was, and I had gone over there and looked. So I was trying to mark where I thought I hit him and look on this like sort of frozen, speckled, dirty ground for blood spatter.
Yeah.
And got absolutely nothing. And then when you told me to go back out there, I was like grid searching. I was just all over looking for this shit. And I went in the woods and I followed all the runs. So I'm like, he had to have taken this run right here, right where I thought he was going.
Yeah.
Nothing. So eventually I called it quits. I'm like, I got to move on.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's getting to be afternoon.
Yeah.
Right?
I've got to move on to let's start to focus on the evening hunt while I'm down here. Once again, it was a Sunday. So, I'm going to throw this out there. I have a girl who works for me at home on Sundays. She's prepping food.
So, yeah, we never talked about what you do for a living. We never talked about how you sponsor this podcast.
Yes. This podcast is sponsored by Gene and Salad Fever. Mm-hmm. I am Gene. I have a personal chef business that is my full-time job, and then I have a business that's just individual, just salads. It's called Salad Fevers, and they're just gourmet fun salads. I started that not too long ago, and at this point in time, I was hunting the weekends, and between hunts, I would organize my salad stuff, and then I'd have a girl prep for me at home on Sundays. So a lot of times while I'm hunting, she's there working, and then so anyways, this is Sunday. So I had moved on from tracking that deer, and I had already I kind of knew it. He wasn't even hit. So I moved on and decided I was going to sit in our field stand that evening and hopefully get lucky. So anyways, back to where I left off from that stand earlier. I'm watching these doe, and they're all super interested in the decoy. I know where they're squirting out right in front of me. They're coming from all directions in the field. There's deer everywhere. And I just happened to look down, and I just see a buck, and I know he's a shooter, like right away.
And I can't remember, was he right underneath the tree?
So
underneath your feet?
It's directly, I'm the only pine tree there. And directly below me is some like down branches right around the tree. But like if you were to go like 5 feet out, you're in the field. It's very clear opening. He must have traveled the edge of the field directly under me. And he was so close to the pine tree that when I looked down, it was under my feet.
Yeah.
So he came right up under the tree and went, and he was not moving timidly. Is that a word?
It is now.
To the decoy. And the decoy was probably 45, 50 yards out. And I put the decoy that distance because I was using gun, and there's a little mound, and I wanted it to be seen from all angles.
Yeah, so our hill, the front property, undulates a lot. It's up and down all over the place. And there are times where it appears flat, and then a deer will disappear, and it's actually not flat. They're down and moving through a low spot, and so Adam's made a great decision. Like I do that too, setting up on the high spot so that they can see it from all corners of that property.
Right. And it came in handy because I didn't actually recognize his buck, but all I knew is it was one right away where you knew it was a shooter. So I get my gun up, I got it ready, and I'm watching him. I'm even got my stabilizer stick. I'm watching him through the scope go up to the decoy. He's still kind of trotting. He had a heavy, fast trot. Got to the decoy, and like I think he smeared his nose on it, like to sniff it, and it scared the shit out of him that she wasn't real. And he jumped backwards, it was a huge jump backwards, and he turned broadside. It was like perfect.
Yeah.
So at this point, he's probably 45 yards away from me. I've got him in my scope. He stops, scared out of his mind, broadside, doesn't know what to do. So I take a shot, and I'm going. Just if he's broadside facing to the right, I'm going at his armpit up a little bit. I mean, a little bit to the left, so towards the stomach area, but mostly up from the armpit.
Sounds good to me.
I hit him, and it sounds great, and his reaction is great. He jumps up in the air, and he jumps towards the woods to my right. I mean, it's right into this pile of down trees. He jumps that way, and he starts, and he's like, what do you call it? Snow plowing?
He's like snow plowing, yeah.
Like he's down, like his front, I'm not going to say arms because he's not a human. His front legs.
His front appendages.
are not working properly, and he is trying to run, and he takes a turn, and he runs exactly back the way he came, directly below me. He follows.
Did you say baloney?
Baloney. Directly baloney. But there's like a little cutout right in front of me that is U-shaped. He follows that line and goes right under my tree and right back. I watch him go through the field, and he falls again, so his front legs aren't working, front arms. And I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like I got him good. Like I'm super pumped, and all the other deer are still sitting out by the decoy, like, what the fuck do I do? At this point, they're being shot at from every direction. So I watch him walk, and there's like a set of pine trees right before you get into the woods. And there's a run that goes right between them. And then there's a gap and like one more pine tree before the corner of the field. I watch him run straight through those pine trees and down the run. And then I'm looking left and right to see where he goes. He goes in neither direction. So I'm like, okay, he didn't go to the left, and he didn't go to, there's a trail right there. So he could have gone north or south down that trail.
And this is last light.
I would say this was 5 o'clock, and I think last light was 5:30.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I had enough light to see where he was going, but not much left in my.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyways, I'm super antsy to start tracking while I could see, but it was very difficult because I still had a bunch of deer around me, and I didn't want to blow that stand. So I'm sitting there waiting until 5:30, and then I get to the point where I'm like, I've got hand warmers in my pocket, and I'm trying to get the doe to like scurry out of there. So I was like throwing them out into the field, hoping that they'd leave.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that.
Very
feminine.
Very manly.
And nothing was happening. So I finally said, fuck it, I got to get out of here. And I think they had moved just down enough to where it was fine. And I think I had already been calling you at this point. I'm like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
Because it was dark. It was dark enough to where I had no idea what to do.
Right.
So I go out where I think I hit him. And it's not hard. I mean, I knew exactly where it was. So it's like, come on, it's got to be right here. I can't find a single bit of hair or blood. And now keep in mind, I'm looking in a field that was beans, and the beans are now gone. So the ground is frosty and like turned up dirt with little bits of like ryegrass growing. Very hard to see anything. I can't find blood. I can't find hair. I got nothing. And you're like, and I had made my way all the way into the pine trees at the edge of the field where I saw him run in.
That's just it. Like Adam watched him snowplow into the woods. He knows that deer couldn't run for a reason.
Right.
And I know that my buck that I shot this year was snowplowed, and he definitely died. So when he told me that, I was like, oh, he's fucking dead right in the woods, man. So the woods is probably 75 to 80 yards behind it, right behind where Adam was sitting. And so my guess is he got his ass out of that field, stopped to figure out where he was going or what happened, and then probably just this is what I thought, tipped over and died. That's what I suspected.
Yeah.
So I just told Adam, like, he's just right ahead of you, man. He got to be right there.
Yeah. So your suggestion was to go get your truck, drive it right back into the field, into those pine trees where the run is, shine your lights on there, and see if you can find a drop of blood.
Because there's nobody to help him. Adam is all by himself. It is now dark. He's, it's hard enough when there's just when you got like 4 headlamps looking for blood. But if you're by yourself and you've never had to track at night by yourself, it's fucking nerve-wracking.
So here's my
and you're tired.
And it's a good question, I guess, for the general population. A blood trail with a rifle, it feels to me like you're not getting as much blood immediately like I am with a bow.
Correct.
It's not blowing a massive hole through the deer.
Right.
So I decided to get my truck lights off because I think it just wasn't working. And I've got a headlamp on and a headlamp in my hand. I'm using both. I am lost. I've got nothing. I follow every direction I think he could have gone. I go all over the place.
You went almost all the way north in the field, didn't you? Or go at least halfway down that field in the north?
I went to the entrance of the middle trail.
Okay. So you went 75 to 80 yards north.
Yep. And then at
which
that
is
point,
not where he went.
No, I'm like, I can't. There's no way.
And Adam watched him go into the woods. Adam watched him go into the woods and still walked 80 yards north just because he was there. It's like, something is not making sense.
So it's cold and I'm starting to get, I haven't eaten or drank. I was exhausted.
Yep.
I had to work in the morning and I'm at this point where I'm where I know he ran in, but then you start to second guess yourself.
Yeah.
There's another set of pine trees over there with a run. Could it have been down there? Could it have been down there? No, it was right here. And I start looking around and I'm like, there's no clear run in the woods. Like if he ran through those pines straight across the north-south trail and into the woods, there was no obvious run.
Yeah.
So I'm just lost, and I was ready to go home, and I took a couple steps, just like if he was to do that and run straight into the woods. And I look down, and there's a minuscule drop of blood.
Like how big?
Like a pencil eraser.
A pencil eraser size of blood.
And I text you right
away.
away.
First blood you found this whole time.
And this is
an hour and a half?
80 yards away from where he was shot. 100 maybe?
Yeah, and it's like an hour and a half after this, after you shot him.
Yeah. So what was happening was the blood was getting cold, I think, and it was hardening.
Yeah.
So anyways, I text you right away and I go, don't ask me how, but I just found a drop of blood, and in no way possible, like, did I mean to.
Yeah.
So anyways, then I'm like, holy shit, I'm tracking. There's blood. I'm finding blood, and I'm finding decent puddles of blood. And I'm going in a direction that I think is into the middle of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And after, I would say, probably an hour, I've tracked blood to a tree stand that I didn't recognize. And all I knew in my head was that there was 2 stands I didn't sit in, Brett's Swamp and Head Swamp. So I'm like, I am not where I think I am. And at this point, I'm not far from where I found blood, so I haven't gone very far, but it seems like I've been tracking forever. And I'd called you and I said, what stand is on a very bare, tall tree, almost like skyscraper, but it seems taller to me. And you're like, it sounds like my swamp. I'm like, it's got to be your swamp. So anyways, I had ended up by your swamp stand, and I found a spot right in front of it that was in some like down tree that was like a big circle of just bloody puddles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's been here and he was here for a while. My guess is I jumped him. And I tracked blood like one step out of that, like I was climbing in and out of trees. And then I had no idea where to go and I was lost. Yeah. So I'm like, I gotta call it. Yeah. So I put a pin in my map and I stuck my ground stabilizer stick in the ground and I left.
And I was like, just go back in the morning, dude.
Yeah.
And you're like, I got to work, bitch.
I'm like, it's my so I know like Monday is my busiest day of the week.
Yeah.
I've got all these salads people already paid me for that I got to deliver. So I make them as fast as I can Monday and I leave at like 2:00 and get down there I got down there at like 3:10. I go right to the point where I left off and I start tracking again and I go probably another 100 yards or so.
And so what time is this now on Monday?
3:10, 3:15.
Yeah. It's late afternoon already.
Yeah. And I start to get to this point after about an hour. I'm like, oh my God, it's getting hard to see again.
Yeah.
So then I lost blood.
And I'm away for work going, when is this clown going to send me a picture of this fucking buck? Yeah. Like, what the hell's going on? I know he's down there.
My phone is vibrating. I've got a guy delivering salads and I'm texting people that their salads are on their way and being delivered. And he's telling me they're delivered. And Brett's texting me like,
hello,
how's it going?
Hello.
How's it going? And, eventually I had there was nothing.
But you've tracked this whole time. You continued to track.
I continued to track until I could no longer see again.
Yep.
And then I lost blood. So I'm going in every direction, every which way I think you could go. And I've got nothing. Every run, everything, nothing.
So the first night you track 150 yards, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less.
It's further than you think.
Due west from where you shot him.
Correct.
And then you have to call it. And so then you show up the next day in the afternoon and you start tracking blood. And how far distance-wise do you track blood that second day?
I would say I tracked blood 150 yards northwest. At this point, I'm in the middle of the property. I'm behind the climber stand in the middle of the property.
So now we have a problem. We have a gunshot buck that snow plowed into the woods, full tilt, that we suspected would be tipped over dead, has now run at least 300 or 400 yards west-northwest. It's not as easy as we thought it was going to be.
No, and then that's already telling me that where'd I hit him.
Right.
I obviously didn't get heart or lung or even gut.
Yeah.
You know, like where'd I fucking hit him?
Yeah.
So then you already start talking like it could have been a shoulder shot, you know, and just he's running around with a broken fucking shoulder. So I call it again because I lose light, walk out of the woods in the pitch black, just totally defeated. I almost said deglazed like a donut. Drive an hour and a half home and I call my wife, Cal, and I say, so this is my thought. I think I'm going to take tomorrow off and I'm going to come down here first thing in the morning and have the full day to track. You are already talking to me on the phone going, you need a full day of light.
Yeah.
This and that.
Because I'm like, that deer, even a shoulder shot, I was like, has to be dead.
He's there somewhere.
2 full days of bleeding out.
Yeah.
You're finding huge piles of blood.
Yeah.
I'm like, that deer's dead. You just haven't found him yet.
And I'm at the point where I'm giving up on the fact that I'm not getting the meat.
Yeah. Right.
So
that's true.
So Correct. At this point, you're disappointed in yourself that you took a shitty shot and you injured a deer. So like I'm going through this whole process of like being disappointed in myself because my goal is not to ever injure the deer. It's to put the deer out, eat it, put the head on the wall.
Right. And I am crushed that I can't be there to help you.
Yeah, you're working in
I
like
hate it.
Marquette or something.
No.
Whatever. So
Muskegon, maybe.
yes, something with an M. But so she says, okay, I will why don't we both take the day off? I'll go down there with you. So we both go down there.
What a trooper.
Yeah, so this is now
Day 3.
So I did Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. This is Tuesday. Day 3 of tracking. Go down there where my stabilizer stake is sticking in the ground. And her and I can't find a damn thing. And we spend an hour plus grid searching this area, and I've got nothing. And I'm basically running through the woods like a deer. And I look like an idiot. But I've kind of given up at this point on finding any more blood. And I just happened to walk towards our big tree stand, which is just one option where I'm like, maybe he made a weird turn. And I get over by Big Tree, and there's a fucking massive pile of blood. So I'm like, holy shit. Like, how is this even happening? So he must have made a weird turn, and there's a run right there. And then from that point on, you had gotten down there right then.
So on Sunday I had to go to Springfield, Illinois, and then from Springfield, Illinois, I went to Yorkville, Illinois, and then from Yorkville, Illinois, I went to Muskegon, Michigan, where I spent the night. I wake up, do my thing, and then I actually made arrangements with my guys at the job site to get up early and go do my thing there early so that I could drive the 2.5 hours to go help Adam. So I went to my job site in the pitch black, turned everything on, did what I needed to do, and then left early to help Adam. I didn't know Kelly was there, but I got there to help.
So all three of us are we're tracking blood again.
And Adam's carrying his rifle because at this point, who knows, right?
Correct. I've always got my rifle with me because I felt like there's a chance I pop up on him and he is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So we track him for quite a while, and the blood trail is not, there's not a lot. We were tracking like little
small,
droplets. And then every once in a while there'd be a little bit more. You could tell where we found him, he was laying down again.
And he's moving due north at this point.
So yes.
By the time I get there.
Yeah, so we track him to in front of another tree stand we have called 3 Tree.
And he is at the back of the property now.
Now he went from basically the front of the property to the back of the property.
Yep.
And so we're talking what, an 80-acre parcel? 70,
he went from, so let's say you're 10 acres deep where you shot him, maybe 15 acres. He ran to the very back of the property.
Yeah. And you kind of have an idea of where he's going. Like there is a bedding area north of 3 Tree. And so you look at me and you go, we could hear crows.
Yeah, that's one thing we always do is like, hey, what are the crows doing?
Yeah.
Because I found them picking at one of my does that I had to leave overnight one time. And I just thought, well, if there's a dead deer over there and he's been dead for 2 days, maybe the birds have found him.
Right.
And they'll lead me to him. And they were going fucking crazy on the north property. So I'm like, hey, you and Kelly keep doing this. I'm going to just walk over there and see what I can see.
Yeah. So Cal and I are at a standstill in front of 3 Tree. We've tracked a little bit further, and it was getting super funky where he was going. And I'm like, what in the hell? And I had lost blood again. And then all of a sudden, I hear a gunshot.
So I had walked to the far end of the neighbor's north property. And I was trying to catch the birds, and I couldn't figure out where the birds were. And I was following all the runs that I knew were over there. And I was using my nose, and I couldn't smell anything. And I was looking for birds, and I couldn't find anything. And I just couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. And so then I looped around, and I was actually on my way back to Adam, but on the north property. I was working my way back towards the bedding, and I was like, I'm going to try to sneak in and walk through that thick ass buckthorn bedding on my way back to Adam and Kelly and see if I can see anything in there, just because that's the bedding.
That's the bedding. Yeah. At this point, I had assumed he had gone that way.
Yeah. They were walking that way. I was very close to them, and I took a step.
We didn't know you were there though.
Yeah. They didn't know I was there. And I took a step, and a deer jumps up 10 yards in front of me. So it must have waited till I got a little too close for comfort. It jumped up, and it's a big buck. I couldn't tell what it was, but it was a big buck. And it takes a couple steps in front of me, and I'm like, that buck's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's limping. And it's like lurching out into the swamp in front of me. So now it's probably 20 or 25 yards. And I'm like, oh shit, I have my gun on me, my handgun. So I grab my handgun and pull it out, and he stops at like 30, maybe 40 yards behind. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how far he was. But the problem is, I don't know. I didn't see the wound. I just know he was having a really hard time moving through the swamp. So I knew he was injured. I also didn't know what buck Adam shot. But I took a shot at this deer, and he took off running, and I don't think I hit him. But I think knowing now, after doing some reading, I should have run that deer down. He was hurt, and he was going to die.
Could have tackled
and I should have just chased his ass down. The problem was it wasn't easy to run out there.
The other thing is so many things go through your head.
Adam and Kelly don't know I have a gun on me.
No.
They don't know that was me. And so Adam calls me immediately. I'm like, I found him, and I just shot at him, and he's running away from me.
So we have permission to track on this property.
Yeah.
It is butt up to our property, and it's just north of it.
Right.
And I know you're there, but I'm like, there's always this question of like, well, we hear a gunshot, but we know Brett's over there. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
I have no idea you have your gun.
Yeah.
I knew it did not sound like a heavy duty.
It was a 45 auto handgun.
Yeah. Like it didn't sound like anything crazy, but I'm like, that was right there.
Yeah.
And then I could see, like, as I'm calling you and talking to you, I can see your orange hat. I'm like, okay, he's right over in the bedding area.
So anyway, this deer takes off running what I thought was more towards the road, like northwest. But, I'm like, wait a minute. No, fucking run after him. Chase him down. Like, he can't move, and you have 2 good legs. He has 3, but you still have 2 good ones, and you haven't been bleeding for 4 days. Like, run that bitch down. By the time I made that decision, like, it was too late. He was gone. He had taken off. I was way too far behind.
But we're also it's a swampy area.
You can't move.
You've got a foot of water in places. It's still chest high, waist high, chest high. Reeds and weeds.
Those devil horn little Klingon things.
It's a great place to hide.
Yeah.
So that's it's a bedding area.
Yep.
So we get together over there, and we spread out about 20 yards, 25 yards in a line, and we just sort of grid search in every direction.
I assumed he was
down, like
jumped
right there.
down, like tucked in something. Like, I listened to him running away, and then I'm like, it stopped. Like, he had to have I either shot him and he tipped over, or he ran and is hiding again because he can't run anymore. And so I'm like, he's got to be tucked in here. Let's get 20 yards apart and just walk back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And we did for 2 hours.
A long ass time. Everybody was soaking wet on their feet, and we were covered head to toe in those
completely covered
devil thorns. And eventually, like, we just got to the point where, like, I'm done.
Can't do it anymore.
Like, we're gonna have to come. We learned that it was a shoulder shot. And he wasn't dead. He was roaming around with a busted arm, and that he wasn't dead, but that he was gonna be dead.
He was for sure.
So we knew he was hopefully gonna stay in that vicinity, because he probably would have stayed right there until he died.
He probably would have laid in that bedding till he died, and I don't know if I always think, well, man, what if I would have just gone back the way I came? Would I have not bumped him up? Would we have eventually gotten over there? Would Adam have been able to take a shot with his rifle? Like, I regret that Adam couldn't shoot him and put him down right there, but I didn't plan to jump a live deer.
You don't know. You just never know.
I planned to find a dead deer is all I planned to find. I didn't know that was going to happen.
So we gave up that day and just decided we'd come back down when we know everything is sort of, the snow topples everything down and it's a lot easier to see. In fact, I hunted that area later in the season, and you just kind of hope you see a dead deer
or smell something, or watch the crows again.
So anyways, ended up finding him. You were back down there.
I was changing cameras, and I looked for some early sheds, and I'm like, you know what? It's fucking pouring rain. I'm already miserable and soaked. I'm just going to go up to this drainage between the properties and I got up to that drainage, which is the direction that he hypothetically was running, or that I thought he was running.
A little more east than you thought, but who knows? Maybe he went northwest, stopped, and then cut in later. We don't know.
So he made it to the drainage. He crossed the drainage and couldn't get up the hill on the other side, and I found him.
Yeah. So he was kind enough to... I got home from delivering salads that Monday, and it was dark, and I got out of my truck, and at the steps of my deck was a buck head.
So I took a picture, and I sent it to Adam, and he's like, explain. Don't tease me like this.
I'm like, that's my boy.
Because I have to drive by the property a lot when I go to and from Illinois for work. And so I stop in there all the time, and I change cameras on batteries, and I move cameras, and I just say hi to the property owner, and I ask her if there's anything I can do for her, and whatever. And so I was just there, and it was raining, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to do one last pass. I just have a feeling that I need to look. I need to look at this drainage. I know the deers run up. They run this drainage, and sure as shit, he was right there. And he's like, are you sure that's mine? I'm like, well, he's got a fucking wound he's got a wound in the shoulder. I'm pretty sure that's him.
So I remember when I saw him not only below me, but through my scope, he had really sort of angelic antlers.
Oh God.
They were beautiful in color and very symmetrical to me.
Yeah.
And when you sent that, I'm like, that's him.
Yep.
So we called him Rodney Shoulderfield.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have his head.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those things where, so after that, knowing that, I mean, if you want to cut myself if I want to cut myself some slack, could have been an inch off. And you
probably were an inch off.
But I went immediately after that to Huron Valley Guns, and I told the guy, I'm like, I need to sight this in. So he's like, go over into the 100-yard lanes. There's sleds in there. So I sat down with a sled. So this was also a learning experience for me too. Those guns are so fucking powerful that even in a sled, on a table, in a chair, that thing is, you fire that thing and it is ripping up in the air and wanting to take the whole sled to the right. So I'm just thinking, standing, freestanding shooting a 450 Bushmaster is going to be, and I immediately called you and I'm like, you shot your buck right through the heart to the point where you exploded the heart.
It can be done.
Were you
left-handed, mind you,
without a stabilizer? How did you do this? And I think you came to the conclusion that you had it resting on your knee.
I had my right hand. I had my right leg tucked back where my toe was propping my leg up. I had my right elbow on my right knee, and so that was my rest.
Yeah.
And so I was using my own body as a rest from a tree stand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, freehanding it, it can be done, but it's, like you said, it's powerful, man.
I shot it at 25, 50, 75, 100.
Yeah.
I was on.
Yeah.
I'm not even as powerful as that gun is. And when I was sighting it in, I was on.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to tell you other than when everything was happening in the woods, it just wasn't going my way.
That's all there is. That's all it is, man. It's it's the scenario of having a buck in front of you. I'm finally shooting at a deer. It's everything. It's all of those emotions.
Yeah. So I think that, I even sent you a diagram of kill shots. Somebody had put pins in a
different colored pins,
a poster,
mm-hmm.
Of how they found deer. And it was whether
mm-hmm.
he was dead or still alive or whatever. And I'm not sure that I'm aiming in the best position, is what I'm learning. So, and I think about my first doe, where I shot her, I thought was not going to be great, but it was a great shot.
Yeah.
So
the lungs go further back than they like you to believe.
Yeah. There's something there that,
in a mature deer.
Anyway. There was a lot that, and I will also say that with that buck with Rodney, the way that he came out and where my camera was situated on that tree, where it had to be situated
mm-hmm.
on the tree, I said, fuck the camera.
Yeah.
You know what it was?
It was probably dead.
The camera went from into dark, when the battery's about to die, it goes dark.
Yeah.
And then I say, fuck the camera.
Yeah.
So I didn't even, not only that, but I don't think I could have gotten the camera.
You spent all day in the woods. You didn't even charge your camera.
No.
Yeah.
So I never got that. Like, we have no way to know what fucking happened. But I'm also frustrated because I don't think I could have shot him and gotten the camera on in that tree.
Yeah.
Because of the way, and I was using all my new stuff, but the way that tree is, there's only one spot I can put it. So, not a great scene. I mean, I'm glad I have his head.
Yeah.
But, like, it's a tiny win for a big fella.
So
Tiny world, big
we
people.
talked about this in the first podcast with you on here. A lot of learning. There was it was pretty much a year of learning for you. Learning about yourself, learning about when to draw back a bow when a deer is moving, like timing wise on that, how long you feel comfortable holding at full draw, shooting from an elevated position with a gun versus, having a stabilizer.
It's like stronger. I said, it opened up a ton of different doors, and every door had something to learn. So I'm even looking at where my backpack is resting on the tree and where I'm putting all these things now, because I seemed to have an issue with everything. And now it's just going into the next season being a little more anal about where everything is at with our stands.
I'm real fidgety about how comfortable I am. So it's like, what's the smallest backpack I can have where I can still cram all my shit in it? What's the warmest I can be, yet still be extremely able to maneuver in every way that I need to? So it's like, do I wear something bulky to stay warm, or do I just layer with thinner stuff and just be a little bit cold just so that I'm comfortable? I know there's a comfortability thing, and it only comes with trying out new stuff, trying out different clothes, trying out different packs, trying out just what works for you and what doesn't. But the problem is you're doing it in a warm month where you're not going to wear all that shit in my front yard and to climb that telephone pole and just figure out what works for you. Like that, that's unrealistic. So it's just trial and error. It's figuring out a routine that works for you. And I think you learned a lot this year about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
it's only your third year hunting.
Yeah. And I think back to like, I kept being concerned that there was not going to be another opportunity. So, which led to more of that feeling of, what was the D word you used? Desperation. But there was always another chance. There's a lot like,
there's a lot to be said about that right there.
Like there's a lot of disappointment that came from this property and this hunting season. But when I sat back and actually thought about it, I'm like, there's a lot of shit that happened. There was a lot of bucks, and there's tons of young bucks that, we don't shoot at. That's one of my things is like, that's really the only thing I care about. Like, let the young bucks live. Tons of action, and it was constant. Like I could almost walk out in those woods and know I was going to see deer in the north field. And so
this is interesting. As desperate as you hunted, you can now reflect back and say, why? I had encounters almost every sit. You could have shot a deer, whether it was a deer you wanted to shoot or not. You could have shot a deer in probably almost every sit. Very rarely did you ever say, I saw nothing.
Right. There was only actually probably 2 or maybe 3 sits where I saw nothing.
That's
and
impressive.
I hunted a lot this year.
That is impressive.
Now I had shitty experiences where I tried to sit on the ground again, and that's when I took my crossbow. And I'm not going to get too in depth here, but busted every time. Like those, I was getting busted way more this year than ever before. And I don't.
At this point, though, those woods were blown the fuck up.
And after gun season down there, it's like, I mean, you can't get away with anything.
And the homeowner's grandson decided he was going to hunt a few times, and who knows what he really did in there. I don't think he did anything like crazy out there, but I don't know if he walks around at all. And I don't know him very well. I've talked to him a couple times, and then and Ed's nephew showed up once during bow season. So it's like there was a lot of activity in the woods by us only. And I feel like at that point of the season, those woods were just fucking, we terrorized them. It was done.
And here's a question I would have for everybody. How important is it to buy? I was on the ground in my green camos, like my leafy tree green camo. in the snow,
Mm-hmm.
on the ground, late season, I felt like I was sticking out like a sore thumb. How important is it to have like snow camo?
Waylon and I sat under the field stand on the ground together in neutral colors and did not get busted.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, I like the idea. If you think you're going to ground hunt a lot, I like the idea of
But
snow
it's
camo.
even being in like if you're up in a tree, all the trees are dead and bare.
Yeah, but they're gray,
So what do you wear?
neutral colors.
I
Like
feel like
these
my
pants?
camo becomes
These pants
I
is
feel
the
like-
color trunk tree. Every fucking tree in that woods is this color.
and I feel like that becomes more useful than my camo.
I think I wore camo 2 times this whole year, and it was because it was raining and I had waterproof camo. That's it.
Well, and I think about, I've saw someone shoot a buck in bright orange. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like I know that you talk about them not being able to see that color.
It's movement. It's movement and scent.
Yeah, I think that there was a sense from me of desperation that
Mhm.
even the deer knew.
100%. If you talk to a real die-hard hunter, he would say whatever energy you're putting into the atmosphere at that point, they pick up on it.
Yeah, it became.
I believe that.
Yeah, it became like you weren't one with the woods anymore.
You know how when you're sitting there and you know you're not going to shoot a deer, that deer feels very comfortable around you.
Mm-hmm.
It will move around. It will look at you. It will look back down. It won't blow. But if you're still and you don't have that I'm going to fucking kill you vibe going on, they can sense that
Your
and they
aura.
feel comfortable as well. But the moment you go into predator mode, like the
Yeah,
I couldn't.
they
Is
sense
that
it.
right?
it was good enough. Michael Myers.
Like they know
Mhm.
and they feel it in the air.
Were you trying to beat the Predator?
Yes.
You were more like Michael Myers, I feel like.
Yeah, but what is the noise that the predator
It's more
makes?
clicky. It's like, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great movie.
Yeah, great movie.
Other than the second one, the one with
Yeah.
Danny Glover. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love him, but
The first one was the best.
When they go, don't
Yeah.
get the Predator back in the woods. Anyways, I don't know what else you want me to say about that season.
That's it.
Like, it was just, that was it in a nutshell. That was how everything went.
Yeah. We unpacked a lot there. We went longer than our first episode.
That's,
And that's okay.
I also talk a lot.
That's okay.
So
You're verbose and you add a lot of information, a lot of good, juicy tidbits there.
that's why I had a 30-minute. I don't fucking.
That's okay. I haven't even gotten to it yet. Well, why don't you tell everyone where they can get? So we didn't do this the first time. Where can people find you? All of you.
All of me. So
Onlyfeet.com.
only feet. I am looking at sock sales. Thinking about starting to sell my old socks to creepy.
Called
Not even
sockittomeme.com.
necessarily creepy men. It could be like a
No,
$1
it's
million
creepy man.
businessman
No.
man that jerks off to old socks.
It's
I don't
still a
know.
creepy man.
I don't know if you can put this on there, but
Yeah, it's fine.
I don't have that yet. I was also going to start an Etsy business where I sell my Hallmark cards. They're going to be, my own cards.
That's insider info that only a few of us know.
I'll let you know when that happens. But it's just my full name on Instagram, Adam Postal. I think. I haven't done this in a while. Taste, Smile, Repeat. Beefcakes, Jim. Get Salad Fever.
These are all Instagram handles.
Those are
by
all
the
on my
way.
Instagram.
And there's one more.
The Sherman one?
No, Postal Drumming.
Oh, Postal Drumming. I also have one for Sherman Sexcerps.
Yeah, but you don't do anything there.
I mean, there's 2 podcasts.
No, they're not anymore. They're
They're-
gone.
But you can't even listen to the old ones?
No, because
Yeah,
we
you're fucked then.
we removed the
Stop
card from
paying.
billing, so they
Because I was paying
pulled them.
$5 a month for a
Nothing.
year.
Yeah.
And then just Facebook is just my name, Adam Postal, obviously.
You
And
want
it's
people
Postal like
you
the
want
mail
people
service.
finding you on Facebook?
No, you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like I put my butthole on there. I should.
Not yet.
I'm starting to think about several different things.
With inflation, you never know.
Inflation of my butthole.
Oh my god. Okay, come on. I got to edit that out now.
You don't have to.
All right.
So, yeah.
What a season. 2023 is going to be a lot better.
I'm already thinking about that.
We're not going to gun hunt. We're just going to bow hunt.
Fine with that.
And I'm fine with it. I don't care if I sell my gun.
I'm
I'm not going to sell my gun.
I won't sell my gun.
That'll be to protect my family when the world falls apart.
I was going to say I'm at a very weird spot in life with the world.
So we're just going to bow hunt. We're going to do at least one out of state hunt, maybe 2. and we are going to
really expensive.
You're going to mobile hunt this year, whether it be from a saddle or the XOP stand.
Mm-hmm. I'm willing to do either.
You're going to drop.
I've already done the XOP.
You're going to lose
stand.
30 pounds by doing so.
Yeah.
It's just going up and down all the hills is going to make you sweat it all off.
Yeah, you would think I'd be thinner with all the walking around out there I do anyways. I think I'm just thick as it is. I'm a thick boy daddy.
All right. Well, this year's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of fun this year.
I'm excited for it.
One way or another, it's all going to be fun. No desperation. No, none of that stuff.
I'm just going to the woods to be in the woods, and whatever fucking happens, just like my first year.
Yep.
I expected nothing and got everything.
Yep. Try it again.
I'm just going to go to sit out there and see what happens.
Perfect.
When Baba Yaga comes in front of me, I'm going to smoke his ass with my big ass.
All right. We're getting crazy. Slaughter to prevail. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Cecil John.
Adam sings a lot. Let me put chapstick on before I wrap my lips around your tight little asshole. I can't keep that in. Oh, that's fine. Why? Because that's not what we're doing here. I mean, we can get a little silly, but that's hot butter. That's hot butter material right there. I just have to keep my lips moist. What was that? Left ear is still plugged. Oh, wick.